I think I just got a glimpse into our future. After I went to the Ute Petroleum gas station, and the experience I had there, and the realization that I had as I was driving away, David Gray's official music video for the song Accumulates came across my notifications because I subscribed to him. I've heard the song Accumulates, and I know it describes Babylon perfectly. I'll include a link in the description to the music video that came out today, and one to the lyrics, or you can just Google it, David Gray Accumulates lyrics. And it describes Babylon so perfectly. Someone asked me once, what is Babylon? When I was titling one of my videos something about escape from Babylon. It was a little tough to describe other than the system we live in, that we've become addicted to. And in the song Accumulates, it talks about this system, how it lures you in and lulls you in with the whole goal of getting you between the sheets. And you may resist at first, but eventually you'll be sucking off the teat. Baby, it accumulates. And these Native Americans have had an accumulation on their culture that shows what our future holds for us if we don't turn this ship around. Because when I went to this gas station called Ute Petroleum or whatever, big sign on the front door, top to bottom, letters this big. A sign that probably cost $200 at Staples to make. The kind of sign people invest in for advertising purposes because there'll be a return on that investment. And it says, here at Ute Petroleum, our company policy is that everyone wear a mask. Anyone refusing to abide by this policy will be asked to leave. And I read that on the front door, turn around and get in my truck. Drive down the road, few miles, another gas station. It is in the middle of nowhere though. It might even be on Native American reservation land because it was about 5 or 10 miles to the next gas station. But when I got there, no one wearing a mask. That tells me the customers that this Ute Petroleum would have a second option right down the road, and the people in the local area aren't doing the mask thing anymore. So you're going to cost yourself all of your business. How can you afford to do that? Because the government pays them, probably for the same reason, because the government pays them just like they pay them to sit on the side of the road selling trinkets, pottery, woven blankets, handcrafted silver jewelry. And I see these roadside shacks all through Arizona every time I drive through there. Just the most basic of a shack on the roadside with a sign that says open Native American jewelry for sale or whatever they sell. And as I drive by these shacks, half the time there's an open sign with, there's a little table in the middle with nothing on it and no one around, but the sign says open. The other half the time, there's someone there with a few things scattered on the table for sale, but there's no customers. And it occurred to me a long time ago, with confirmation from some Native Americans that I worked with. They pay you for being a Native American to live on the reservation. Not if you live in society, but if you live on the reservation, you get like a universal basic income. And that's how this is a glimpse into our future. So if you live on the res, they pay you like a monthly, whatever, a stipend, some money, some unemployment kind of stuff. And the reason they always have the open sign at their shack, even though they don't sell anything there, and half the time there's actually someone there with something for sale, but there's never any customers. I've bought something from these shacks, but very rarely do you drive by and see anyone stopping. It's middle of nowhere. And it occurred to me, how can these people afford to invest their time, effort, energy, and resources into this when they're not getting any customers? It's because the federal government pays them to preserve their cultural heritage. What they're actually paying them to do is not pass down your cultural heritage to the next generation, when it comes to homesteading, living off the land, communal governance based on tribal understandings, etc. They pay them to stay there on the side of the road selling useless trinkets, no offense. And it is probably a similar program by which they are getting paid to put that sign on their front door. Before I bury the headline any further, about a year ago, while I was driving through Arizona in these Native American reservation areas, a little mole over there or something on the ground, I have a video, I'll include the link in the description, where at one of these houses, ranch off the side of the road, they've made their own billboard signs out of plywood and paint. And they painted up their own little picture of the coronavirus. This is a year ago, like when this is still first kicking off. Painted their own little picture of the coronavirus, and it says, wash your hands, it's the law. Wash your hands, it's the law. What if they tell us to brush our teeth? Well, then that's the law. You wash hands, it's the law. These people are so conquered and cuckolded, and they are reminded of that every day. To the point where, now that it's all going away, they're still tripling down on the investment they made to master, to show that they're the best, most obedient slave on the plantation, reservation. And that's what I was thinking in terms of as I walked away, thinking, how could they possibly be doing this? Because the one reason for everything everyone has ever done or ever will do is because they believe it will make them feel better. And that's a profound thing for me to be able to say, that there's one reason for everything everyone has ever done or ever will do, not some big complicated reason, a very small sentence in a few words. They believe it will make them feel better. Or what they choose to not do and not say, because they believe that would make them feel better. And as I'm thinking of this, how are these people, this prana economy, somehow they're getting paid in pride bucks or something, and it's worth the loss of business that they're getting. And then it occurred to me, oh no, the government's probably paying them just like they pay them to sit on the side of the road and sell useless trinkets. Even if they don't sell a single one, we'll pay you. They similarly probably, through the same programs, oh, we can just add this amount of money to your cultural heritage and preservation check that you get every month. Maybe you show us the video of every person that walks up, reads the sign, and walks away, and we'll give you 25, 50 bucks, whatever it is. Whether it's a quid pro quo like that, a general increase of your compensation for putting this sign on your door because we know it's going to cost you customers, or it's all in the prana economy. This pairs very well with my last video called, Are You a Slave or a Prisoner, and What Will You Do with the Rope? Because it's a mindset between the difference between a slave and a prisoner. And when this first started kicking off and I saw those people painting that sign on their front yard saying, wash your hands, it's the law, I was like, oh my God, all hope is lost. These are the people we were counting on. With that free spirit, like James True says, when they say you're crazy, just remember, you're not crazy, you're crazy horse. They've lost their crazy horse spirit. And they've been put on something like universal basic income, and like the song says, it accumulates, and you may resist it first, but eventually you'll end up sucking off the teat. I guess that's British for tit. And they've been doing so for so long that that's all they know. And that's a glimpse into our future. So we may be faced with the decision, shall we return to living off the land? Or join a type 1 civilization, but this current state of affairs is coming to an end. Maybe that's what Will Smith meant when he said it's rewind time and fast forward time. Some are going to a type 1, others are going back to the land. The current in-between process that gets us there is a reset. Back to horseback. And eventually we'll reach the space age again. But I would say these people are a good example of how your spirit gets sucked from you. And because they feel shame and because they feel so conquered, it reflects in their behavior now in such a way that you would think they would be the most resistant and the least likely to go along with this, but no, it's quite the opposite. They are the most compliant. In the complianceocracy, it's not based on merit, what you can do, what you can contribute, what you can construct, what you can produce, the type of values they would learn in that communal setting if their parents weren't sitting on the road selling useless trinkets and instead teaching their kids how to homestead, how to farm, how to ranch, how to govern a community. So these people have had their spirit sucked right out from them, and it accumulates. And after a while, generations for them, that's the result. They tell you brush your teeth, it's the law. Whatever they say, it's the law. And they're so compliant within the complianceocracy that they have submitted to. Because in the complianceocracy, as opposed to meritocracy, where the proof is in the pudding and you get the results of your labor based on the merit of whatever you produced. Within a tribal setting, that's amplified and magnified, but still it's based on merit. Within the complianceocracy, people are rewarded according to their ability to comply with regulations and promoted according to their ability to get other people to comply with those regulations. In the complianceocracy. And these people have submitted to the complianceocracy so thoroughly for generations now that when the governor says, Emergency Powers Act, whatever I say is now the law, they have no resistance. Their mental, emotional, spiritual, immune system has been so compromised, they have no resistance. And that's why we call this a fear inoculum. Inoculation is another word for vaccine. Inoculation is where you get a little dose of the poison in order that you can build an immune system and be resistant to it when you come in contact with a full dose. Some of us are building our immune systems, other ones folded. They folded, they may have had a lot of resistance. Like the song says, you may resist at first, but she'll get you between the sheets, and that whore of Babylon will have you sucking off the teat. And that's what they do now. That's all they know now. Their whole way of life has been taken from them, and they have nothing else to fall back on. So, when the health department comes and says, hey, can we get you to put a sign on your door? It probably doesn't even have to offer them any money. Yeah, it'll cost you all your customers, but it'll show that you're in compliance. You don't want to be in violation, do you? Or no, I will put sign on door. No offense with the language or anything. I have a little bit of a Native American in me. Except probably a little bit more than Elizabeth Warren. Pocahontas. According to my great-grandpa, or my grandpa, it was my great-great-grandpa who came as a result of the Mountain Meadow Massacre, where the Mormons were fleeing persecution when they moved from Missouri to Utah. And a band of travelers came through, and the Mormons slaughtered them all because they didn't want word getting out of where we've settled. Because the witch hunt that's going on. And that's what James True said. The Freemasons developed this whole process for because they were in fear for their life and they don't want to live in a world where people are easily able to be led on witch hunts. We've recently been led on a witch hunt, the invisible witch hunt, the war on the invisible microscopic terrorist. And in that way, we're far less likely to do it in the near future, when it really matters. So these people have lost their way of life. They've lost their will to resist. They've lost all independence and sovereignty. All that cultural pride that they take pride in, it's gone. And we too have been shown you're not what you thought you were. And that's how they break you down in order to build you back up. All that red, white, and blue freedom and liberty shit went right out the window. Constitution! Unless he declares an emergency, well then it's dictatorship and whatever comes out of his mouth is law. So that's a glimpse into our future. Are you going to take the universal basic income or go back to living off the land? Because there's some people who no longer have the ability. They were put on the plantation and they're paid to stay on the plantation. And that's what the universal basic income will amount to. Some will choose to go back to the old ways. Some will choose to go to the stars. And some will choose to take the universal basic income and go on to the plantation. That's what I see coming. So I never finished my story. It's actually my grandpa's story. About the Mountain Meadow Massacre. After the dust settled, a little boy and a little girl crawled out from under one of these covered wagons and were adopted by the Native Americans, who raised them as their own. And the little boy took a Native American wife, and that was my great-great-great-grandpa or something to that effect. That's written somewhere in my grandpa's testament. But I'll include another link in the description that shows me going to the Springville Cemetery and showing you some headstones from people that died in the Black Hawk Wars and the Native American Wars, or maybe they called them the Savage Wars. And that there is a reconciliation coming, just like 9/11 isn't ancient history. Abu Ghraib is something most Americans don't even know what it means. And it's going to be a rude awakening when they find out what it means. What was done in their name? Sitting on the side of the road selling trinkets is almost a ironic slap in the face. You go sell those beads that we traded you some of for this land. So we do need to be the authors of our own authority, or someone else is going to do it for us. And this whole separation process has made us show our true colors. And that's what I was saying all the way out to Missouri. Everyone's getting a chance to show their true colors. Looking at my years like a martyrdom, everybody's got to be a part of them. That's a lyric from Whatever It Takes. And that's what I was saying all the way out to Missouri. You're all going to have to go through this too. Part of that breaking down of your self-image is showing you you're not what you thought you were. Red, white, and blue, freedom and liberty. You can't even wipe your own ass without us. That was proven. That's why this all started with a toilet paper shortage. Also, to inflame the shame that accumulates, that makes you more malleable in the hands of those who would get you to contort to whatever shape they desire. Shame. I misspoke in my previous video. I said those that have been lying and have higher levels of fear take the mask and the vax. What I meant was those who've been lying and have higher levels of shame take the mask and the vax. The shame that is accumulated in the hearts and minds of the Native Americans over the generations, every day when they walk outside and are reminded that they're a conquered people, when they look around at the desolate land they live on where there ain't shit, or they can go join society, they're reminded every day of how conquered they are. Cuckolding. And that's a glimpse into our future. There are a few generations ahead of us in Babylon. but they're a good example of where you end up if you fall for the seduction of the system that's going to pay you your universal basic income to do nothing. So it's a good time to mention that COVID means death of sheep. According to something I read somewhere. The C means slaughter, the Ovid means sheep. And this is a psychological distillation. Psychocide, not genocide. And so James said that these Freemasons kicked off this process starting 200 years ago because they didn't want to live amongst sheep, because sheep attract wolves. I can't say I blame them. And now that you're living amongst the sheep and you have to deal with the consequences of their spineless decisions, you probably don't want to live amongst the sheep either, do you? And as I was saying on my way out to Missouri, as a conscious being, you can see the difference between you and all these people around you. That was before the COVID. Now that the COVID has shown us all our true colors, that statement is magnified and amplified 1,000 times. As a conscious being, you can see the difference between yourself and those around you. And so this distillation process has also given us an understanding of why this has to happen. It showed us the alternative. Those are the consequences. If we don't do this distillation process, that's what you'll end up as. That's the society you're going to have to live with. We loaded this New World Order machine with blanks, but the next sheriff in town ain't using blanks. Take a chance with us, or stick around and wait for the second gods, because you heard the first gods that arrived, that's the Antichrist. That's the fake God, the false Messiah. Wait around for the second ones. Yeah. Side note, slightly different topic. The song Take Me to Church references the beast rising out of the sea. Something shiny, something meaty for the main course. That's a fine looking high horse. What you got in the stable? We've a lot of starving faithful. That looks tasty. That looks tempting. This is hungry work. Take me to church. Just saying, I think they're referencing when they say drain the whole sea, something shiny. That just might be the beast rising out of the sea referenced in Revelation. But considering everything that the current power structure has indoctrinated us with has been pretty much 180 degrees opposite of truth. When good is declared as evil and evil is said to be good, we already live in that system. It's not coming. We live in that system. So those people within the system that we live, they told you that beast that rises out of the sea, that's the Satan, that's so be very afraid. You might not want to fear what they tell you to fear, because that's the real difference here, is who can act out of love and who can act out of fear. And they've used that fear to precondition people and mind control people and weaponize them. And they are activating those fears that they pre-programmed in everybody. And now that you can see they for who they are, the current power structure posing as a Christian nation and a Christian church that still runs the Santa psyop on you every year. Is that a drone? That is, it's a little drone. The exact opposite of their namesake. Just like Black Lives Matter, the feminist movement, Occupy Wall Street, Antifa's the most fascist thing you've ever seen. All these other movements are the exact opposite direction of their namesake, and they acquire the people who would resonate with that message and lead them in the exact opposite direction. And if you can recognize that that's what the institutions all around us have done for a very long time, you can reprogram yourself. you can control your own mind by controlling your own feelings. And if you allow them to control your feelings, they control your mind. If I hadn't have developed a relationship with the Spirit, in fact, that's one thing I said on my way out to Missouri, there's no way I could go through all of this without the Comforter being with me. I had 20 years as a truther, hunting, pecking, finding these, giblets of information here and there. Another 2 years of truther research would not have gotten me to where I am, as comfortable as I am going through this process. It's only that relationship with the Spirit that gives me the feelings that allows me to think for myself again. It's freeing. And that's what the song says by Imagine Dragons. 'Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. I'll do whatever it takes. Those chains are fear. That fear is what keeps you in bondage. If you can break those chains, it's freeing. And if someone can put you through a process that forces you, a forced graduation, as someone put it in the comment section a couple months ago, I don't know, man, you're saying this is a forced graduation from Earth School, and I don't think I like it. When you're going through a haunted house, even though you know it's a haunted house, walking in the front door, you know everything in here's fake, no one's really going to hurt you, but boom, 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 it still scares the shit out of you. That shows you how effective fear is. Even though you know it's just a guy with a Jason mask and a rubber axe, it still scares the shit out of you. You get out the other side of the haunted house and you start laughing. Oh my gosh! Releasing that energy, that charge that had been built up in you. Fear inoculum. You're getting a little dose. Let it build something in you that gives you that resistance. To the next time someone tries to trigger your fear threat response mechanism, which gets you to disengage the mind and go into survival instinct mode, you won't be so easily manipulated. And those kind of people, they're not easily conquered and malleable. They become the authors of their own freedom and the authors of their own authority. So this process has shown us the truth about who we are, about the people that we live with, and the freedoms and liberties that we thought were the system that we live within. This whole thing has shown us the truth about the system we live within, that you're not as freedom-loving, flag-waving as you think you are. In fact, the whole idea that we beat the British Army, the British Navy, the most powerful military force on the face of the earth at the time, and a ragtag band of guys with muskets defeated them? Right from the very beginning. You were told that so that you would think this is your land, this land is my land. Just like God convinced the world she didn't exist, made us think that we're here all alone and doing our own thing, ain't no one else here. We were convinced, just like an owner will invest themselves into a company far more than a company employee, we were told that we're the owners of this land. Now we know that we're not. And we sit here and we pretend that those are our public servants and they do what we tell them to. Whatever we vote, they do. Until it's time to come to pay the price and the consequences of the things that they did in our name. Then, oh no, we're the slaves. They're our masters. Yeah, they're the mighty government. I have no power over them. Until then, we pretend that we're the master and that they're our servants. Public servants. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, was named that for a reason. And the consequences of the truth always come back around. You can delay it, you can run, but you can't hide. And the consequences of this truth that we have been avoiding, the consequence of avoiding the truth also has its own consequences. The consequence of acknowledging and facing the truth has its own consequences. And that dividing between those who acknowledge and face and accept and adapt to the truth and those who don't and go into a denial mode, That separation is happening right now every day. There may or may not be a big choice point. Maybe it just accumulates, and it accumulates quicker and quicker and quicker to the point where we're separated into different groups and we live in two different worlds. Just like I said, the difference between the knows and the know-nots will create a difference in our daily lives even greater than the haves and the have-nots, who can live right across the train tracks from each other and live in two different worlds. Their daily experience is 100% different, like they're on different planets between the haves and the have-nots, right? The slums, the poverty over here, the Beverly Hills mansions over here, two different worlds. The difference between the knows and the know-nots is happening, and the difference between our daily life experience will be even greater than the difference between the haves and the have-nots. Because all wealth is knowledge and all economic growth is learning, and some people are digging in their heels, refusing to be a part of this awakening and in this learning process. They don't want to contribute to this economy. They don't want to be part of this. They want to cling to the old, the tried and true. They don't want anything new and different. They want their pet theories, and anything that runs contrary to that, they refuse. So, it hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. Because this really is the end of all of our elaborate plans, my friend. But this is the beginning of some new, even bigger plans. Even more elaborate, if you want to be a part of it. Most people don't. And once you see that this is the way of filtering those different types of consciousness, and you were shown the truth about the country you really live in, and the people you really live with, and your friends and family, and what they're really about, what their priorities really are, comfort, convenience, selfishness, that they don't really live according to any principles, that they will fold, that they act like sheep, they attract the wolves, and if you don't want to live in a place where you pretend you're free and that they're your servants until you have to pay for what they've done and what they're still continuing to do right now, having been shown this truth makes it self-evident that it had to be this way. And you become grateful for those who chased us up that hill with the Jason mask to show us who's who and what's what.